Hey there guys, I have a short video for you today that addresses the hips. If I had a nickel for every time someone asked me about hip poses, I would be rich. Hips are very complex and move in lots of different ways, and sometimes we focus a little bit too much on just passive flexibility and don't think very much about strength and mobility in that joint. So I'm going to address some of that here. And this is in no means a complete video to address every single aspect of hip function. Keeping it short for today. We're going to do everything lying down for this one anyway. And I'm going to use the block for one of the things. So we're going to start to come down to the mat. And I'm going to use the block for this first thing here, a passive stretch. So we're going to go into bridge pose and then rest the sacrum area on top of the block. I'm going to do the medium height, which I think is probably pretty good for most people, but you can decide how you want to take that just depending on how things are feeling. So you lift your hips up, slide it underneath, and then get that situated. Make sure it feels comfortable. So basically, in this position, we're just letting the hip area chill the heck out, right? So take a moment there to give things a moment to feel settled and supported, to also let your nervous system feel safe and secure before we do anything else. So let's take a few deep breaths here and feeling the rise and fall of the breath as low down into your abdomen as you can, hopefully near the hip flexor area. This is one of my all-time favorite positions for a passive stretch. It feels really nice and easy. And sometimes I think we like to overcomplicate and make things difficult when easy would really suffice. Okay. From here, we're going to take one leg at a time and do a little bit of movement from hip flexion into hip extension. I'm going to start with my right leg, and I'm going to lift that foot, keeping the knee bent. Let the knee pull toward my chest to flex that hip, and then I'll extend the leg forward and let my heel kind of hover for hip extension. Back and forth. Nice and slow. And this time, as I go forward, I'm going to let my heel rest down and keep it there to hold in that extended hip position for my right side, and take a few breaths. Okay, I'm going to take that right foot back into that first bridge pose position, and then I'll do that stuff on the other side. All right, lifting the left foot, letting the knee pull toward the chest, flexing the hip, and then extending forward and trying to let that heel kind of hover. And maybe it touches, but we're not keeping it there until a few rounds of movement.
Okay, let's set it down and let it rest there for a few breaths. Alrighty, I'm going to take that foot back in, press down into your feet, lift your hips and slide the block out, slowly lower down. Take a moment, let your back settle. Alright, from here we're going to lift the knees up, take your hands on top of your knees, and we'll pull the knees in toward the chest, so again that's hip flexion, and then we're going to draw the legs out and forward and back around in a circle. And in truth, you don't actually need your hands, right? Switch directions. There went to my left hip. That one always likes to pop like that. You may have one of those hips as well. Okay. From here, we're going to do a little test of passive versus active hip flexion. So I'm going to start with my right leg. Let the left leg go down. Pull that right knee towards your chest. You know, like we were doing on the block, but we were practicing it actively. And without the block, it feels a little bit different, of course. And this is our passive range, right? Because we're using our hands to do the work for us. All right, and then give one more little pull, and then we'll see how much we can keep of that leg in position as we let go. And we'll probably gonna lose a little bit because, that's normal, right? Okay, and then let's switch. Start with the passive pull on that left leg. One more pull, using the hands, and then let go and see how much is lost. And you'll notice a difference from side to side, and it may be different in hip flexion than, external rotation or internal rotation or extension, right? Because the hips are complicated. Okay, from here I'm going to take both feet down, knees bent, but widen them a bit. And speaking of external and internal rotation, we're going to windshield wiper the knees from side to side. So when I go to the right, I'm externally rotating the right hip, internally rotating the left hip, and vice versa. So I'll move from side to side and see how things feel. And this should feel, I would say, fairly friendly for most of us. I just like it as a way to get things a little bit more mobile, and it feels kind of nice. It resets the back as well, right? So we're going to see if we can add in a little bit of strength work to this equation. So let's take the knees over to the right, and I'm going to give my glutes and my legs and my feet a squeeze, right? Engage all those muscles, and maybe arms down somewhere to help as well. And I'm going to try to keep the knees windshield wipered, if that's a verb, over to the right as I go toward a bridge lift, right? So trying to lift the hips in that weird position, and then lower down, take a rest, and then let's go to the other side. Keeping them there. Again, give everything a good squeeze. Try lifting. And lowering. Let's do that one more time on each side. Windshield Windshield wiper to the right. Squeeze the muscles and lift and lower. Windshield wiper to the left. Give things a good squeeze. Lift and lower. And then let's just do another little bit of windshield wiper movement side to side. Okay. So next up, everyone's favorite, or it seems to be everyone's favorite hip pose is pigeon. And we do the recline version sometimes as well. But typically we just do it passively. So we're going to do a little bit of movement and work in the position first before we go into our passive stretching. All right, so we're going to take the right leg first, across that ankle over the left knee. And so we're using already, it's still a little bit passive here, right? Because we're using this other leg as some leverage to push against to help us rotate that right leg a little bit more open. All right, so enjoy that, because it won't be there forever, right? Root your low back down. We're going to lift the left foot and use that leg to pull the pigeon set up in a little bit more. And that's where we feel that glute stretch on the right side. And we'll lower back down, back and forth a few times. Okay, we're going to keep the in position, right? That leg's pushing in. We're going to see if we can maintain, and spoiler alert, we can't, right? We're going to try to maintain as much as possible of what we've got here in the rotation in the right leg as we detach the left leg and extend it forward. And you can see, right, that this foot is not as close in as it was when I was using the other leg. There you go. Passive versus active. Let's try that a few times. Okay, and then grab hold of whatever you want to grab hold of here. Sometimes I'll grab behind the left knee or for the left knee, or even just grab the pigeon leg. It really doesn't matter. You're using your hands regardless to help facilitate your passive stretch, which should feel nice after that work. So we'll enjoy it. Okay, I'm going to keep that pigeon set up and take the left foot back down. And then I'm going to go into another passive stretch that I really like from here. I'm going to let this pigeon set up fall to the left. I call this one fallen pigeon because it falls over to the side. And we'll feel that, maybe in both hips, but in particular, some of the internal rotation muscles of the right hip. Grab hold of that pigeon ankle with your left hand, pull on it, but push the leg forward away from your chest, and reach your right arm overhead. And breathe, because breathing always helps. Alrighty, so we'll do all that stuff on the other side, and we'll notice our differences. So we'll come on up, take the right foot down, cross the left ankle over, and we'll keep the right foot down to start and just sort of notice where things stand on this side and how we can use the other leg, right? That point of contact is helping us to rotate externally with the left hip. And then we'll lift the right foot and pull in to feel more of the glute stretch. And back down, back and forth a few times. gonna see how things stand with the rotation of that left hip as we remove the contact point, extending that right leg forward. And this is my side that is not as friendly for external rotation. I'm trying to be nice to myself and not just say it's my sucky side. But you can see the difference, right? Okay, and then I'll grab hold of something and give myself a little treat with that passive stretch. Using the hands in some way, grab whatever you want to grab hold of. Take that right foot back down and we'll send that pigeon setup over to the right for fallen pigeon. Foot comes down, grab hold of that pigeon ankle with your right hand, pull with your hand, but let the leg move away from the chest, reaching the left arm up and over. And again, we're probably feeling it in some of those muscles that we worked with our active positions and movements a little while ago. Alrighty, we'll release from there, come on back up, uncross, and we'll end with another passive stretch. And I'll give you some options for using your block if you want to. So soles of the feet together, knees wide, so both legs are open, hips are externally rotating and abducting out to the sides. And this hip pose in particular, right, also addresses the inner thigh. So sometimes, you know, the nearby muscle group has an effect on how that feels. So keep that in mind, right? It's not just about the hips necessarily. And you can adjust that position with legs more forward, legs closer in and C. So some people, if you are a little bit looser and want to see how it feels to put your feet up on a block, it definitely feels different. It gives you a little bit more to work with. I actually really like to come back to that first bridge pose position with the sacrum on a block and do my bound angle legs from there. Much nicer for me. You know, try a few different things and see what you think. And just take some slow deep breaths. Let things settle. Back down and your knees back up if you're up on a block. Right, again, just lift your hips and slide it down, being cautious. Taking a moment to let things settle. And then you can roll over and come up to maybe just cross-legged and just kind of check in with how things feel in that area. I can feel a difference myself from
when I first sat down to start the video to now. I'd love to hear your feedback. I will be doing more of these little hip videos addressing that joint in some different ways from different positions.